Hello, Nurse! Welcome back to YouTOONS episode 4. This one, we're talking about all the WB Spielbergian. I guess that's an adjective or something, adverb. I don't even know that much because I watched so much Animaniacs and I watched so much Tiny Toons. That was my education. So I don't know, Spielbergian. I need some help. I'm going to throw it to my co-host, Mr. Kody Smith.
Hey, John. Yeah, this has been such a great episode. After watching it for so long, I am filled with poo gas. Hey, John. Yeah. So yeah, it was a lot of fun, and like these are my favorite. I mean, I'm wearing an Animaniacs shirt. Basically, this whole thing is just so great, and I love it. So.
Absolutely. I'm wearing a Marvel shirt, maybe to represent the late, great Stan Lee. We just lost a legend, ladies and gentlemen. If you haven't heard, I'm sure you have. If you're watching a podcast like this, I'm sure you know that Stan Lee has passed. But, I mean, 95 years old, it's pretty good run, right? I mean, I'm sad, but that's pretty good.
Oh, I mean, yeah, of course. I wouldn't begrudge anybody for being sad about that. But, I mean, yeah. I mean, respects to his family and all that, because we've lost a great man. I mean, I'm sure there's been some things kind of coming up that he's not done so great, but he did do a lot of good things and kind of propped up the comic book business for pretty much forever and has come up with a lot of memorable characters. So, it's one of those things that. Yeah, it's really tough. I mean, we wouldn't have. We're going to talk about a little bit of comic books today, and we would not have comics in the way they are now without Stan Lee.
Absolutely. And before we kind of jump into the meat and potatoes of what more like gefilte fish and matzo ball, it's so nice to have my heritage represented on all these cartoon shows, because I guess a big part of the Jewish community just really loved cartoons in the 90s, or that made Don Bluth films and these films, Spielberg, of course. But I have a special guest, not just my co-host Kody Smith, but I picked a Big Bomber beer that had like the most cartoonish kind of noir lettering, like font on it. So this is the No Lie Brew House Citrus IPA, March 4th, 7.2%. It's doing beer the Spokane style way is what it says. So yes, I have a giant beer tonight as my special guest. Sir, do you have a special guest?
I do. It's kind of so I'm using my Buc-ee's mug, but this is coffee. And I know people are gonna hate on this. White girls are about pumpkin spice. I'm about peppermint mocha coffees. So this is just a regular coffee with peppermint mocha and then peppermint Smirnoff.
Ooh.
I did not pick up Bailey's on the way home, so I'm kind of a little upset that I didn't have that to add in there. But so I do have some special Christmas edition coffee for my drinking pleasure.
Very nice. Is that the Smirnoff bottle that's wrapped like a candy cane?
Yeah, and I will say, I mean, I understand trepidation if you were to pick that up, because you can't see in the bottle, but it's Smirnoff, so you're not getting top shelf or anything, but it'll do the job if you're mixing it with other things, and for adding to hot cocoa with a little bit of Bailey's and some whipped cream on top. Mwah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, I've been a big fan lately of adding liquor to my coffee. It sounds weird because I've been drinking for a long time, ladies and gentlemen, not just tonight. But just in general, I never really dug the warm alcoholic beverages, but on Halloween, I had mulled wine for the first time. I think I'm saying that right. Mulled wine, which was absolutely delicious. It kind of tastes like warm Jägermeister. I know we'll talk about cartoons, I promise. But then recently I've been adding some rum to my coffee. But yeah, without further ado, cheers, my friend. Let's get this party started. Ooh. That just tastes like a candied orange, dipped in hibiscus flowers. That is tasty.
Yeah, I was gonna say it does look more like a citrusy.
Wow.
Here.
Yeah, that's nice.
May have to look into it.
All right, we got James Hine, my buddy Jim, and Kevin are in the chat already. So without further ado, So this is episode 4. We decided to kind of this is kind of like our first episode where we talked about all the 90s Nicktoons, but this one we decided to go WB. And I guess to be more accurate, it would be kind of like, because at the time when they were created, Tiny Toons and the like, they were on Fox Kids, and then they got kind of bounced around from place to place. So let's talk about a little bit of the origin of our first cartoon that we'll be talking about, and that's Tiny Toons. So you got any information on that one?
Yes. So before we do that, I want to talk about a little bit about Spielberg, because Steven Spielberg, if you haven't heard of the little-known director,
Right.
I think people will catch on before too long. But Steven Spielberg, crazy director, worked on a lot of things that kind of led up to the TV cartoon revolution. So one of the first things he did was, in 1979, Don Bluth left Disney to form Blue Studios, like we talked about in our Don Bluth episode. Go back and check out that episode. We're not going to go into a whole bunch of depth there. But he ended up working with a composer on Secrets of NIMH named Jerry Goldsmith, who later went on to work with Steven Spielberg on Poltergeist. So he had kind of a connection there, with Spielberg and doing all that. So Bluth and Spielberg ended up working together on 2 full-length animated films, An American Tail and The Land Before Time. So then that's when they kind of split, and Steven Spielberg opened Amblimation Studios, which was his he kind of did his own animated films. They actually only did 3 as Amblimation Studios, because after that it was rolled into DreamWorks SKG. Which the SKG in DreamWorks SKG stands for Spielberg, Jeffrey Katzenberg, and David Geffen. They're kind of big titans in their own industry. So Jeffrey Katzenberg for television and David Geffen for music. So they banded together to form their own animation studio. The Amblimation movies were 1991's An American Tail, Fievel Goes West, which we touched on briefly. I know that you don't feel as strongly about American Tail as I do, but
not Fievel Goes West. I love the original.
Yes, so that was the only one that Amblimation did. There were 3 other sequels that I don't know who did, and don't worry, you shouldn't watch them. They're not worth looking up. They did 1993's We're Back, which featured John Goodman as a singing dinosaur, and 1995's Balto. So again, that's another one where the sequel was not done by Amblimation or by Blue Studios. So basically after that, Amblimation closed. In the early 80s, Steven Spielberg started working with Robert Zemeckis, which I'm sure you've done some talking about Robert Zemeckis, who produced 1985's Back to the Future, which was kind of not his only film, but just like a really big breakout. And then honestly went straight into the film that would shape animation's renaissance, 1988's Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Who Framed Roger Rabbit is like the biggest thing. If you have not seen Who Framed Roger Rabbit, I wouldn't blame you for stopping watching this and going to watch Who Framed Roger Rabbit. It has the best animated fight scene between Donald Duck and Daffy Duck. It brought together WB cartoons like Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck. It brought together Disney, Betty Boop. Basically only like Popeye and like Scooby didn't show up. Like
it was like the Marvel versus DC of the animation world, right? It's like that's what you wanted to see back then, and it was probably a lot easier to do back then with studios kind of sharing more IPs regularly and doing more collaborations, where everything now is just very tight knit and keep the cards close to the vest, so to speak. But yeah, I mean, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, we might want to shut down right now because we might want to save it for its own podcast.
Yeah, but so I just wanted to bring that up because that's kind of the late 80s, early 90s was when studios started having cartoons that weren't meant to just sell a product. You weren't making He-Man to sell He-Man toys, or She-Ra to make She-Ra toys. You were making cartoons that the writers and the animators had direct control over, and they had their own stories. And Steven Spielberg really had a lot to do with that, with this, and then the cartoons we're about to talk about. So I did want to bring that up. And just the quality of Roger Rabbit was just so good. So there's a scene where they're bumping. They're in the back room of the bar, and this actually came with a new saying in filmmaking called "bumping the lamp," and it comes from when Roger Rabbit hits a lamp in the room and the lamp swings, and so you see the shadows of Roger Rabbit, who's not there. Like in filming, he is not there, and you see the shadows move as if he were a real thing. And he brought that straight to the Warner Brothers, or the Animaniacs, Tiny Toons, and to a lesser extent Freakazoid. But so, I mean, all three of these cartoons were just crazy expensive. Every single moment is orchestrated with a 25 to 30 piece orchestra. They're needlessly animated, but it makes them look so good. And I highly recommend looking these all up. I mean, Tiny Toons and Animaniacs are both on Hulu. Freakazoid is on Verve, but you can buy these pretty much anywhere. They're all great.
Yeah, and that was one of my favorite things about, because I mean, think about how busy Spielberg was at the time, and the fact that he would give instant feedback on scripts, and he wouldn't waver at all on the orchestra too, because they were, I believe, okay, so, and kind of scaling it back a little bit again, you had the original like 5 people, and I don't know their names. You probably have them in the notes, but they were the ones that were responsible for Looney Tunes and Merry Melodies and bringing that up. It was one of their daughters that decided, that she wanted to make. This was competing directly with Little Mermaid. So Little Mermaid in 1993, that's when that came out. So they're just like, they're doing that. This is kind of our answer, Warner Brothers answer to Little Mermaid, where it's funny, go way back. And I think it was Balto was created to, not Balto, the dog that you were just talking about, but it was a Mickey Mouse-esque kind of cartoon that was created. He was the original Looney Tune, very wholesome, not at all what you think of when you think of Looney Tunes, madcap and kind of slapstick and crazy, to compete with Mickey Mouse at the time. So, in the 90s, Warner Brothers Animation Studios thinking, how can we stay relevant? That's when they decided, okay, it was one of the founders' daughters said, I want to make Tiny Toons, which is, we don't want to do it as this is young Bugs Bunny, this is young Daffy Duck, but they wanted to incorporate everything to give it a little bit more relevance, to have the older characters, the original characters rather, and the new characters.
Well, and you just brought it up. Basically, one of the big things that was coming up was a resurgence of these cartoons. Like there's like baby kid Flintstone kids, a pup named Scooby-Doo. I will defend a pup named Scooby-Doo. A pup is the only baby version of these shows that came out good.
You could die on that mountain. That's fine.
On that cross, I will. That's something that I will defend. Pup named Scooby-Doo. I mean, Muppet Babies. Like there was a whole. I mean, to varying qualities, there was a lot of shows about child versions, and so when the idea was brought to Steven, he was like, "Well, I like the idea, but do we have to make them baby bugs?" And baby, and so like, I mean, the intro to the show kind of explains it a little bit. So let's go ahead and play the theme for Tiny Toons.
We're tiny, we're toony, we're all a little loony. And in this cartoony, we're invading your TV. We're comic dispensers, we cut them all the senses. On Toon Adventures, get a dose of comedy. So here's at the acres, it's a whole wide world apart. Our hopes only stands alone, a cartoon worth of art. The scripts were rejected, expect the unexpected. On Tiny Toon Adventures, it's about to start. They're furry, they're funny, they're fast and busted bunny. Montana matches money, Elmira is a pain. She's hunting and plucky, dizzy devil yucky. Her balls are yucky, and Coco is insane. At Asheville University, we earn our Toon degree. The teaching staff been getting laughs since 1933. We're tiny, we're toony, we're all a little loony. It's Tiny Toon Adventures, come and join the fun. And now
our song is done.
And all of the audio for this is going to be super long because like all these songs, these are all individually written songs. I mean, like I said, these were lavishly animated as well as composed. It's basically like 22 minutes of new compositions every single episode. Like steps, like when you hear somebody tiptoeing, you hear like a xylophone, like, you know, like when somebody's head turns, there's a noise. When someone gets kicked out of a door, you hear that classic WB like a fastball getting caught, like, and then the as things, you know. So lavishly animated and composed. They're all beautiful. But Tiny Toons, let's talk about Tiny Toons.
Let's talk about Tiny Toons. We have Buster Bunny himself being created by the artist, and then, you know, what happens when the artist makes the one, he has to make the companion. Although Buster was initially very upset that he just wanted a buddy, right? And here comes Babs Bunny. Babs and Buster are two of my favorite characters in general. I mean, surpassing the original Bugs Bunny and all that. I mean, you get Daffy Duck, who is just absolutely phenomenal. You have all these. I like how they went with, yes, they're similar to their older counterparts, but there is a little differences. None more evident than Elmer Fudd and Elvira. That one is my favorite one because you have Elmer Fudd constantly trying to murder Bugs or any other, Porky Pig. And then you have Elvira, who is also murdering animals, but she just has a bunch of locked up, bruised, beaten little furry creatures that are in her house. So this was not for the squeamish, ladies and gentlemen.
there was a Halloween special where her dead animals came back to life to kill her.
Yeah.
She found ways to like grind their bones into powder. Like it's pretty on the nose. You already kind of went over the cast a little bit. We had Charlie Adler as Buster Bunny, Tress MacNeille as Babs Bunny. Tress MacNeille, who is just so fantastic. She is everywhere in animation. We will talk about her probably for the length of this show. Like in the coming episodes, Tress MacNeille is just amazing. Joe Alasky is Plucky Duck. Frank Welker, another one, is Furball. Don Messick is Hamilton J. Pig. Basically Maurice LaMarche, Rob Paulson. Like all these people are basically on all these shows. So we're not going to cover a whole lot of specifics anymore after that.
But the thing was, the initial cast of Tiny Toons, that's what's kind of set the stage for these other shows that we're going to be talking about. But all of these people that he just read off had to get single-handedly okayed by Steven Spielberg himself. He was the final. You think about that. Think about how busy Steven Spielberg was. But he still took the time to be like, I want everything orchestrated. I want to sign off. I want to see the dailies to some of these shows, and I have to sign off by each castmate. He cared that much about these three shows, a couple more, but especially, Tiny Toons is so important because it is kind of the one that set the stage with the voice cast, with the level of quality that he set for everything with the orchestration. And then talk about just some of the most memorable, catchy tunes that you'll ever hear. And one of our favorite things, Kody, is how current it was. It was just, it was a slapstick, funny, pieced together show with cartoon animals chasing each other. But man, this show was, you could be 8 years old to 50 years old. And at the time, you're not going to get a lot of these references today. But Bill Clinton's in the intro song, right?
He's in the intro song for Animaniacs.
That's right.
Bill Clinton is actually a recurring character in Freakazoid and Animaniacs as well. So, Steven Spielberg, unfortunately, well, for the better or worse, he's kind of a creature of fancy. So he gets really into something and he grabs hold of it. And so it's kind of like Tiny Toons was like in the death grip of Steven Spielberg. Animaniacs was pretty well under his control. And by the time Freakazoid had happened, he was just kind of like, yeah, okay. So unfortunately that's kind of what happened with that. But, he had so much creative control but he knew when to like put the pedal down and when to let it go. And these writers are just so great. Like you said, it's slapstick comedy. It's people getting hit with mallets, getting anvils dropped on them. So any little, my 4-year-old son was just sitting out watching Animaniacs. Like, that's crazy that he can enjoy it, and then I can get it for like, for the fingerprints jokes, like, and so the thing is like, we're talking about a 20-year-old show right now. That show was written in the 80s or written in the 90s by people who grew up in the 80s, who grew up watching reruns from TV in the 60s and 70s. So like a lot of these references, like we're going to get to a few of these that I want to point out specifically. But yeah, I mean, it's crazy. It ran for 3 seasons from September 1990 to December 1992, had 98 episodes and 3 specials, 2 of which aired after the show was over.
Yeah. And that's kind of unfortunately an ongoing theme. Each one of these, the first 2 especially, almost hit that historic 100th episode, but Tiny Toons fell short by 2. Animaniacs fell short by 1. 99 episodes. That is just heartbreaking.
So technically, I'm going to push up my glasses. Specials that came. So Tiny Toons had 4 specials. So they had Tiny Toons, How I Spent My Vacation. It was a straight-to-video movie that was later added to the show. It had It's a Wonderful Tiny Toons Christmas special, which aired. It was the last episode. It was December 6, 1992. It had Tiny Toons Spring Break special, which aired on the 27th of March, 1994, almost 2 years after the series was over. And then Tiny Toons Night Ghoulery, which was a Halloween special that was released in 28th of May, 1995. So that's just great. Like, they did eventually get to over 100 episodes with those specials, I believe.
Yeah. Can we just take a moment to talk about, is it going to throw off the cadence of the show if we take a moment to do a little in-depth review of Tiny Toons How I Spent My Summer Vacation?
Oh, no, go for it.
This film was everything that I wanted it to be. This is one of my favorite films. If I were to put together film critique, a top 100, this would make it. And this is a direct to video film. I love this movie so fucking much. It's not even fun. Sorry. Like I'm so excited about Tiny Toons How I Spent My Summer Vacation. I played it recently for my young daughters. One of them is 5, the other is 7, and going to be 7, so 5 and 6, and they just ate it up like I put on SpongeBob now, and it is just the perfect marriage of adult humor, and I mean there is some shit in this film. The whole premise of the film is basically that it's how the cast of characters got to spend a single summer, where Buster and Babs Buster just wants to do nothing, I think, and then Babs just wants to suntan or sunbathe, and the whole thing, the whole like through line is Buster soaking Babs, like getting her wet with squirt guns and buckets of water, much to her chagrin. And then you have my personal favorite storyline, and that is Plucky with the pigs, with Hampton, and their trip to Happy World Land. I can't even say it without just like dying. Where they, spoiler alert, they make it all the way. They go through hell and back just to get all the way there, just to go through the parking lot, because it would just be too much excitement to actually go on the rides. It's just, I mean, you had a Jason reference, Friday the 13th. You have a bigamist wedding, with the crocodile or the alligators, with Buster and Babs. We'll talk about adult humor, right? Yeah. I can't marry her. That's bigamy. No, that's bigamy. It's just, this movie was perfect. Did you like it as much as I am?
Let's learn how to speak French, because it's time for Frenching with Freakazoid.
Comment allez-vous? Bon. Et maintenant, la leçon du jour. Qui a coupé le fromage? Je répète. Qui a coupé le fromage? Who cut the cheese? Who cut the cheese? Qui a coupé le fromage? Bon, merci. Au revoir.
This has been Frenching with Freakazoid.
I told John I was going to interrupt him, and I saw a shout out for Freakazoid in the chat, and I thought I'd put in one of my interruptions.
Perfect.
But Tiny Toons was so great, and I'm gonna actually pull one of the clips that I pulled for Tiny Toons, which is actually a kind of strange connection between John and me. So John and Mike. John is no stranger to Jewish representation in cartoons. We've talked about it on previous shows, and so there's an episode, season 3, episode 11. It's Bugs the director, not Bugs.
Buster.
Buster the director. So he wants to be a director, and some shenanigans interrupt it. So this is I'm just going to play this to see if people get it.
And now, without further ado, disruptions or distractions, I present my directorial debut, Furball on the Roof. Action! Stop the presses! I protest! This is ridiculous! Furball on the Roof. You're going to direct a major musical starring a cat that can't even talk? Cut! I demand a rewrite!
So he's doing a rewrite. He's wearing a red hat like Steven Spielberg does.
Rewrite? I'll give you a rewrite.
So he goes to hell to get it rewritten by an anvil.
This is workable. So, where's my script? Ducklahoma, starring Plucky Duck. Now this is a classic.
So it turns into Furball on the Roof, which was the Sylvester Tiny Toons version, and it turns into Ducklahoma. And they actually have like original songs from the musical that are just like adapted and, legally distinct, in quotes, versions of like when anvils fall, it's great. It's so good. Oh man, it's just
another episode that is like very historic is the episode, what is it? Tiny Toons in Hawaii, Hawaiian Vacation, something like that, where it was literally written by 3 13-year-old girls that were writing kind of like a fan fiction for Tiny Toons at the time, and they were just kind of passing it back and forth between them. And one of them just said, hey, whatever. She sent it out to WB headquarters, to Warner Brothers. Some way, somehow, it got into the right hands, and they made the show from their script. And they gave them all the credit and everything like that. But that's the type of thing. It was just so crazy and madcap, but so polished at the same time, where you had all these great people working on it. I mean, Steven Spielberg, for shit's sake, is backing it up, putting money into this Saturday morning cartoon. But then, you have something like that happens where a couple 13-year-old girls just happen to write a Tiny Toons show, and they used the script. So it was such, I mean, it's so unfortunate that it was only a 3, even with the movies and the specials, but only a 3-season run, because I mean, this thing is fantastic, and these characters, I think, deserve to kind of go on and still continue to grow.
So these characters were continued to use, would be continued to be used throughout Animaniacs and Freakazoid. But I do want to talk about, there was one spinoff that we'll talk about now, and one spinoff we'll talk about after Animaniacs. So the first spinoff was the Plucky Duck Show in 1992. Basically, it was just, there's only one original episode, which was originally put back into Animaniacs, which was The Return of Bat Duck, which was a Batman parody. But the rest were just like plucky, eccentric episodes that were kind of just added in. And then, so this is one of those things where the show lasted way longer than it, like the things that were peripheral to the show lasted way longer than the show actually did. So I'm going to pull up a few things because Tiny Toons had 19 video games, which is insanity. So here's the first one. Oh, There we go. There's the first one. It was a Tiger Electronics LCD handheld, which I'm sure us 90 kids from the late 80s, early 90s will remember. So this was Tiny Toon Adventures. That's it. That's the name, and that's from 1991. And so I'm not going to go through all the games because that would be terrible. But so the last one was Buster's Bad Dream for the Game Boy Advance in 2002. In 2002, everybody. Like, that's how insane is that?
That's 9 years after the show was canceled, right?
Yes, that is 9 years after the show was canceled. So it's one of those things that it's really just, I don't know, like how do you explain that that Tiny Toons was that big? That's just insanity.
But you think about all the things that are being remade, or even Looney Tunes to this day. You were still getting new Looney Tune, like I think it's called the Looney Tunes show. Now you're still getting continuations of those characters, but I mean, just nothing on Tiny Toons. But Tiny Toons and everything on this, like I said, I think they started off on Fox, and then they went to WB Kids, and then they, I'm sure we're going to talk about this, but bounce to Nickelodeon, to Disney Channel, to Cartoon Network, and it's just all these kind of. And along the way, some of these networks would take out some of these more adult jokes. I mean, they would neuter it because, you think about what's PC in 1993 to what's PC today, and you can't show half of these cartoons.
Yeah. And again, so this was originally started on the Fox network. So this was basically they were all on the Fox network until WB decided that they wanted to do their own cartoon show, their own Saturday morning cartoon specials. So when they did their own, they moved it all over. And so, everything was just kind of moved over. And that's when you saw all the ads of them, running through the Warner lots, and you'd have like Pikachu running around in the background and the Freakazoid and the Animaniacs and all the other Batman, which was also created by a lot of the writers from this. So it's one of those things that it just everything fed into each other with this whole Warner Brothers thing. It was just crazy. Tiny Toons had a magazine, which I've got here as well. I'm going to pull up. It was a quarterly magazine. Why does it keep doing that? It was a quarterly magazine published from October 1990 to December of 1992. The first 4 issues were from DC Comics, and the last 4 were from the Welsh Publishing Group. So yeah, that's a copy of it. You would get this in the mail if you signed up for it.
What is this magazine? What is that? Is that paper with words on it? I don't even get it.
You got them mailed to you in your mailbox. The place where you only get bills now.
Is that like a news paper?
It did have some news things from what I read. It had some news articles about the show, but it was mostly a comic that you would get. So the other thing that Tiny Toons kind of got a little bit of, and let me pull this up real quick because I've limited means apparently. There we go. So they also got, and again, it pulled that away. It also got some golden books. So if you were a late 80s, early 90s kid, this is a blast from the past here, where it had the cassette tape that you would read the book along, and it would have all the voice actors on it reading the book as you went along with it.
That's incredible.
That's just insane, right?
You could pop it right in your Teddy Ruxpin, right?
Yeah, exactly. Everybody had one of those.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's pretty much. I mean, there's lots and lots of merchandise for those. They won 7 daytime Emmys, so like it was just a well awarded show, and yeah.
It was a serious show, man, for sure. Unfortunately, I think Plucky, the actor that played Plucky, died, which was really unfortunate. And that was going to be, now we could kind of segue into the spin-offs. But the initial spin-off was going to be the Plucky Duck show, or I think it was like Baby Plucky Duck, where it was just, I think they aired the pilot, and it was just Baby Plucky Duck looking at the toilet and just saying, whatever, or toilet paper goes down, toilet paper goes around, or whatever.
Down the hole.
Yeah, down the hole. And it was like 20 minutes and no one liked it.
No, and again, like all that stuff just got worked back into Tiny Toons. And so it just got absorbed into Tiny Toons, which was amazing. I have nothing bad to say about Tiny Toons. The only thing is, this was kind of still in the time where they had like morals and I don't mean that in a bad way, but it was just like, oh, like the moral of the story is you should do your homework. Animaniacs had the Wheel of Morality, which was much less
Moral, yeah.
It was you know, I mean, I think the most moral they ever got was don't be a fool, stay in school,
Or vote early and often. That was one.
But I mean, they also said that while they were getting chased by security guards. So I don't know. Take it as you will. Like that's I'm sure we'll get to some of that in our discussion about Animaniacs.
And see, and this is the thing. Like I said, we're segueing into Animaniacs now. It's like Animaniacs is a spinoff of Tiny Toons. I couldn't for the life of me remember the actual Warner Brothers and their Warner sister Dot being in Tiny Toons at all.
No, they weren't. And that was just kind of I mean, Animaniacs came after, you know, so obviously a lot of Tiny Toons showed up in Animaniacs and in Freakazoid, but there's no swimming upstream when it came to that. Animaniacs did kind of become its own. And I already told John this before we started. Animaniacs is going to be the bulk of the show. They're kind of the more all encompassing. Tiny Toons was a great foundation. Again, beautifully animated, scored to the 10s, like just wonderful animation that you can still show to your kids and it'll get a laugh. But at the same time, Animaniacs is just like an unstoppable juggle knob.
Well, in Tiny Toons, it's just like that was their kind of dipping their toe and to really go against kind of, to put a product up against Disney and all that with kind of a well-known IP. It's, yes, the Looney Tunes, the WB cartoon characters weren't featured as much as these new characters, but they still had obvious blood relations, literally and figuratively to the other one. So it was kind of the perfect Trojan horse, which gave them carte blanche to do what they wanted with Animaniacs. And oh boy, did they nail this.
Yeah, and again, this was coming out at the time when Disney started really putting money into television animation. This was when Hercules was getting its own show, Aladdin got its own TV show. This is when this is starting to be where like Goof Troop and like Darkwing Duck and stuff are starting to work their way through the Disney machine. And Tiny Toons was really kind of showing people that you can do quality animation and do it well in TV without, like we said, forcing a commercial for a toy. And people started taking notice, and this is when we started getting good cartoons.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, without further ado, let's jump into probably everyone's favorite, the Warner Brothers and the Warner sister Dot.
There we go. No, that's Tiny Toons.
We could listen to that again.
Yeah, I mean, basically, while I look for it, every podcaster's
far
life.
Too much time with your computer. It's not healthy.
It's my life.
That's so very, very sad.
I might have forgotten to get the Animaniacs theme. I'll pull it up real quick. But
sorry, dude.
No, it's all good. It's my issue if I mess that up. But Animaniacs, so amazing, such a great show. I mean, basically has all the actors from Tiny Toons, and along with like Rob Paulsen, Paul Rugg. All right, here we go.
Not Paul Rudd.
Not Paul Rudd.
It's time for Animaniacs, and we're saying it to the max. So just sit back and relax, you'll laugh, you can laugh. We're Animaniacs. Come join the Warner Brothers and the Warner sister Dot. Just for fun, we run around the Warner movie lot. They lock us in the tower whenever we get caught. But we break loose and they're not loose, and now you know the plot. We're Animaniacs. Dog is cute and Yakko yaks. Wacko packs away the snacks while the plankton plays the sax. We're Animaniacs. The Pinky and the Brain who want to rule the universe. With letters blocked together, Slappy laughs them with her purse. Martin chases Mindy while Rita sings a verse. The writer's script, we had no script, my father to rehearse. We're Animaniacs. We have paid for play contracts. We're saving to the max, there's baloney in our slacks. We're Animaniacs, totally
Hell yes. I am 12 again.
Animaniacs. That was a theme that they rewrote multiple times for no reason other than to just have a different version of the theme. It's like that is just insanity. Again, Rob Paulson, Tress MacNeille, Jess Hammer, Jess Harnell, who played Wacko. He also played Arnold Schwarzenegger on the show. Frank Welker, Maurice LaMarche, Nancy Cartwright, Paul Rugg, Michael Keenan, Cree Summer, Jonathan Winters, Adam West, Jeff McCarthy, David Kaufman, Tom Ruger. There's so many people on the show that it's just insanity.
How great was Tress MacNeille? And I mean, she sounded exactly like Babs Bunny because it was the same person, but it was like unabashedly Babs Bunny doing, Babs and Dot. And it was like, she is just the most entertaining voice. And I would have to say Yakko was always my personal favorite. I don't know why. He was the leader. He wore, pants. He was just great.
Yes.
Wacko sounded like Ringo Starr, which had its own charm, but Yakko's the guy, right? But God, just like listening to Tress MacNeille, she's just incredible. This is the story of the origin story, the fictional origin story of the Animaniacs.
Don't worry about it. It's all fictional.
Right. Yeah, well, maybe. They don't really live in the water tower. Thanks for what? Santa Claus isn't real too? What the hell? They are not ever. What are they described as? They are like animation specionians. I don't know. They're not any type of animal per se. They're just animation. But they are the Warner Brothers. They are the actual Warner Brothers and their sister that were a sideshow of that of the act that I was describing earlier, which I think I botched the name. I don't think it's Balto. That's the dog. But it was that early analog version of Mickey Mouse. And so they were the sideshow, but they were just so zany and incomprehensible that they locked the Warner Brothers up in the water tower until one day they escape and they just cause havoc. This was Saturday Night Live. I mean, half of the show didn't even have Yakko, Wacko, and Dot in it. It just had all these clips. It was a comedy skit clip show. And talk about adult humor. They took where Tiny Toons kind of Trojan horsed in, and they just took it to a 10.
So Tress MacNeille was also Daisy Duck at the same time as all these others.
That's right, yeah.
And was in The Simpsons a lot, and just so she was just all over the place. But you're right. There was I pulled some of the themes. Like for Slappy, we got
the crankiest of creatures in the whole wide world. Our next cartoon features Slappy the Squirrel.
Enough with the singing already.
So again, beautifully just done. And what's funny is like you said, they were separate things. They were a separate entity. But every once in a while, the Animaniacs would just run through. They're like, just go, hey, this is still an Animaniacs show.
I mean, good idea, bad idea. With Skullface. I mean, and those were brutal. It's like, good idea. Go do the or go do gardening yourself. Bad idea. Do dental work yourself. And then it just shows the Skull Man shoving a drill bit into his face until his whole body explodes and turns into dust. I mean, these are insane things happening for children to view.
So one of them, Rita and Runt, I actually put it under the wrong thing. They got Bernadette Peters, who is still alive, a huge TV and Broadway star, has done many things through her whole life, been on crazy amount of TV shows. But basically they got a Broadway singer to sing the parts for Rita, which is just crazy that they were able to do on a, I mean, this wasn't something that they did every episode, but just to get a Broadway singer on the show, that is just crazy. And again, this was a show that, played with adult themes a little bit more than Tiny Toons did, and also had a lot more I've got a clip here about when Yakko became the king of Anvilania.
Anvilanians, I present the heir to the throne. Let us introduce ourselves, O people of this land.
We are the Warner Brothers.
With sister close at hand. I bet you all are wondering, who is this young unknown? And why am I inheriting the Anvilanian throne?
Yes, why? Yes, why? Oh, please, please tell us why.
The bottom of the family tree starts with Yakko, that is me. I'm the cousin to the sister of the son's niece's brother, of the uncle's daughter's father, of the nephew's sister's mother, and my grandpa's only cousin was the king's daughter's sibling. But they're all gone.
So that is why
I am now your king.
he is now our king.
Yes, I am now your king. Repeat what I just said.
Repeat what I just said.
And let the anthems ring.
But yeah, so I mean, just like,
have you seen him do that live at conventions? It's so scary that he nails it still to this day.
oh yeah, he still sounds like that. Like, it's just crazy.
No, that's not an easy thing to sing. That's like a rap battle. I mean, that's fast.
No, and so what's funny is like you can look up him doing that and like the nations of the world and like United States, Canada, Mexico, Panama, Haiti, Jamaica, Peru, and like he just nails it the whole way through, and it is insane. And what's funny is Richard Stone, the composer, who also wrote a lot of the music, he wrote that as like his audition piece for the show. He wrote it and then he gave it to Paul Rudd, not Paul Rudd. He gave it to Rob Paulson, who just sang it, and he's like, this is why I want to be on the show. And then Rob Paulson did some singing. So there's actually two reasons why those songs kind of came to be. There's like the states and their capitals, the countries of the world. That filled the education mandate that we talked about in the first episode, where they had to do a certain number of educational things. And let me see, I do have something here. Let's see,
He's mute,
Nope, that's not it. That's a different theme. I guess I don't have it, but basically there were lots of episodes where he would sing, the countries of the world, or they're all out there, so go find them. They're all great.
Well, and the country, specifically the countries of the world one, was the composer, like you said, was actually teaching his child at the time the capitals and the countries and whatnot. He had a small child at the time. He was actually the composer for Batman the Animated Series, and said, while he's teaching his child these, this on the map where things are, he was just like, yeah, Canada, Mexico, blah, blah, blah. And it had this cadence to it. He's just like, this is a great song. I can't use this on Batman, so I'm going to bring it to Animaniacs.
Yeah, and I mean, there's so many people. Like I said, basically, that's kind of where Freakazoid came from, which was just an extension of, and a lot of the character models look the same from Freakazoid and Batman the Animated Series. So if you look very closely, Freakazoid's girlfriend Steph looks basically like Harley Quinn. A lot of short-haired women. That was definitely one of their things in animation.
Even Freakazoid looks like he's torn right from Batman. Like, he looks like he could be a Batman Rogues Gallery villain from the animated series.
We interrupt our regularly scheduled program to bring you this special report from the WB Network.
What exactly is the WB? Can someone tell me this? What's it mean, the WB? The water bucket? The wimpy boy? The wet bananas? I don't know what. The weird butt? What? I'm asking.
This has been a special report from the Weird Butt Network.
Sorry, again, another interruption by Freakazoid. I actually found it. Here it is.
There's lobby and loading and loathsome and loaning and loco and then locomotion. There's lotus and lottery, lobo, lobotomy, logic and loosen and lotion. Lozenge and lumber and lucky and lover and lullaby, lumber and Luke. Luster and luscious and lunatic lustrous and lurking and lunar and loot.
Yakko's now about halfway through all the words in the English language. Dick Button and I will be back with more.
So that was Yakko singing every word in the English language as commentated by Dot Warner and Dick Button, who was an Olympic ice skater who's notable for inventing the flying camel spin, which was originally known as the button camel. Like, I wanted to bring that in because, like, that's the level of references we're getting, and
they went deep sometimes.
Oh, for sure. And that, like I said, I mean, Tiny Toons did basically a reworking of Oklahoma as a musical. Like, what kid at the time, like, sitting down watching this on the the Kids WB is ever going to get that?
Eric Williamson in the chat says, "What did Wacko burp on the episode?" That was the State Capitol's song, right?
No, that was just an opera song where he just drank soda and burped. And
right.
It was to the blah 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 blah. Like, that was it. And like, he even had an intermission where Dot brought him out like Vanna White style, like to refuel. Again, there was also Slappy the Squirrel, the Good Feathers, which Good Feathers I think was kind of on the lower end of the spectrum as far as the animation, the shorts. It's kind of a one-note joke, really. Like you could have done that 3 times. You had
De Niro, Pesci, and Ray Liotta though. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the Good Feathers.
I'm just saying, like after you get past The Godfather, which is what it's parodying,
sure.
Then you're just like, okay, well, what else do gangsters do? They visit their mothers in Florida. Okay, but that's not like. That's it. The Godfathers run out. There's a Chicken Boo, who's a giant chicken who wore costumes to try and fit in as a human. Katie Kaboom, which was very relatable to a child. It was about a guy who's raising a teenage daughter, and it's like, boy, isn't raising a teenage daughter hard?
and he actually the person that came up with that actually modeled it after real accounts with his own daughter, which she was not very happy about.
I'm sure, and again, this was one of those ones that didn't show up quite as much, like you said, like with the Wheel of Morality and with like Good Idea, Bad Idea. It was just like, oh, we've got like 30 seconds. What do we do with this 30 seconds?
And does Good Idea, Bad Idea voice sound familiar? Well, it should. They flew this gentleman down from Alaska to record all these, but you could also hear him in all your Motel 6 commercials because he'll leave the light on for you.
And then the last one, I think my least favorite was Flavio and Marita, the Hip Hippos.
I don't even remember those.
Yeah, that was my least favorite.
Well, there was the little girl and the dog too, right? I forget what
Mindy and Buttons. Those were a lot of fun.
So that one is a fun story. Sorry to cut you off, but that one has a fun story. That one because as well as the voice cast, like I said with Tiny Toons, Spielberg got to veto. He had the power of veto for everything in Animaniacs as far as what made it in the show and what didn't. And Mindy and Buttons, he vetoed. However, the person that did save it was his own daughter. She vetoed him, and henceforth we got Mindy and Buttons because child of Spielberg wanted it, and that word is more important than Steven's. So.
I would suppose so. I mean, Steven Spielberg, again, huge influence, but I'm sure his daughter pulled the strings a little bit.
Sure, absolutely.
The series ran for 5 seasons, had 99 episodes, ran from September 13th, 1993 to November 14th, 1998. Some contemporary shows are King of the Hill, Hey Arnold, Recess, Sailor Moon, and Dexter's Laboratory. So do you want to talk about any of the shows in specific besides what we've already discussed?
Well, I mean, mostly just like some certain Mormons, this beer is getting to me. Certain moments. I don't know where that came from. We're talking about Jewish people, not Mormons. Certain moments, and especially like the songs were the things that maybe were unexpectedly what people remember the most about Animaniacs. Yes, the different skits and everything, but like we stated with the the places in the world and the capitals. My personal favorite were the presidents of the United States, because that one went so dark. They just didn't care. They made fun of the Confederates, the Confederates, if someone died, if one of the one of the presidents, now I'm showing my ignorance here, but the president that got assassinated, they're like, yeah, he wasn't very good because they shot him right away or something like that, and that's in the song. And I was just like dying when I was listening to that again today. It was just like, and it's almost creepy in a way, because the current incumbent at the time was Bill Clinton, and they said, the people that are in control right now is the Clintons, Bill and Hillary. And then after that, it's just like, you never know who's going to be president now. It could be you, it could be any schmuck, and then just get in your plane and fly away. And I'm like, oh God, what a prophetic song.
And we've proven Animaniacs right. It can be any schmuck.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. It's just like, I implore the chat and everyone else that might watch this later, go check out all the Animaniacs songs, but specifically the President song. It's so brutal. This is what Kody, you and I now have to do a thing. We need to do a punk rock cover album of all the Animaniacs and Tiny Toon songs.
That would be really hard, because those are well animated or well written songs, all of them, really. So I would have a hard time doing that. I can play Free Fallin' on guitar, and I think that's pretty much as far as I go.
Here, we'll start right now. No, it's we need like a Scatman Crothers too, because Yakko's songs, man, are so fast paced and just so like furious. Like I said, it's like listening to like a Busta Rhymes with how fast his cadence is when he's just singing these like childhood songs.
Yeah.
What's the thing that you remember most? Like, what was your favorite thing about Animaniacs?
So I was going to bring that. I've already said it in the chat once. One of my favorite was when they were looking for. There's an episode where they were private eyes, and he originally was a half private eye with a half bath and a sink, but then he's a full private eye. So there's I believe it's in that episode where Yakko tells Dot to go finger for Prince or go dust for Prince, and she comes back holding Prince, like the singer Prince, and then Yakko says no fingerprints, and so Prince and Dot look at each other, and Dot looks at the camera and says, "Nah, I don't think so." Throws Prince away.
Yeah.
And pretty much anytime there was an adult situation, like an adult joke that like gets cut off, it would just be like Yakko go, "Well, good night, everybody," and then like they just like would go on, like move past it. And or like there was an episode where Dot was just not into it. I believe it was early in season 3, where like they showed like Yakko and Wakko like bounding down the sidewalk, and Dot's just like head down, just like and they're like yelling at a hot dog vendor, and then Dot's supposed to say a line, and she goes, "I don't know, guys, I'm not feeling it." And then Yakko's like, "Do you just want to skip this one?" And she said, "Yeah, sure." And then they just walk away, and that's the end of the cartoon. like how great is that? Like that's just it's so beautiful. And then they can, like you said, they can just put a good idea, bad idea to fill out the time.
Yeah, and they love those. They love the ending because they did, like, with how crazy and painstakingly they all the details they put into every episode. They did like the fact that they did get to recycle some of the animations every once in a while. And that was the thing. It's like not every episode. It wasn't so. This is going to sound weird. Not every episode was so episodic where every episode you would get a Wheel of Morality or a good idea, bad idea, or any of the skits. Like you said, that one, Rita, I think there was only like a handful of those in the whole entire, 99 episode run. So you never knew which skits you were going to get, which was part of, I think, the allure of the show, which kept it really fresh and really entertaining. Yeah, just going back to the fingering Prince thing, I remember seeing that, and like that was playing one morning in my household. I don't know, this was 1995. I must have been, maybe 11, 12 years old. And the conversation in the room just stopped. Like everyone just like, what? Like, and we were just all glued to the TV. And it was like one of those moments where I'm just like, you know, my older sisters were just like, wow, this show is special. That clip was not supposed to make it to final. That was one of the ones once it went to Nickelodeon, it actually got axed because they kind of edited it more once it went to started syndication on Nickelodeon. But that was one that I heard was supposed to be taken out, but accidentally made it to final copy. And yeah, that one was even too risque for the Animaniacs.
So there was also in that same episode, they were trying to help Hellooooo Nurse find the professor, Dr. Scratch and Sniff, and he was looking for this cartoon award that was in the shape of a bird. And so in the shape of there was an episode where the Warner Brothers got a hold of the bird, and one of the other characters says, "Give me the bird, give me the bird," and then he says, "We can't. This is a kids show." Like they're just direct like, no, we just can't do this. But I pulled up a wheel of morality for us here.
Perfect.
If it'll come up here. There we go.
It's that time again. To get our baby shot?
To make bubbles with our spit?
No, it's time to learn the day's lesson. And to find out what it is, we turn to the Wheel of Morality. Wheel of Morality, turn, turn, turn. Tell us the lesson that we should learn. Moral number 2. And the moral of today's story is... if at first you don't succeed, blame it on your parents.
Deep.
I don't know about you, but I'm touched.
In the head.
And then they run off again because they're being chased by the security guard. Yeah, Tiny Toon or Animaniacs, just beautiful.
Yeah. I had something else, but now I don't remember. What's up?
So it had 2 spinoffs. So Pinky and the Brain got its own show that even aired in prime time next to Batman the Animated Series. Had 4 seasons, 66 episodes. And then from September 90, let me see. Oh, here it is. And then, so for some reason, a lot of the executives at WB wanted an Elmira show. So they snuck it in, and Pinky, Elmira, and the Brain, which lasted for 1 season, 13 episodes, from September 1998 to April 1999. So, like, obviously didn't go anywhere. But it was terrible. Like, even in the song, like in the lead up to the song, they're like the executives made us do this. Why bother to complain? Like it's in the show that they didn't want to do it. But Animaniacs, not unlike Tiny Toons, had a lot of products that existed past when Animaniacs was made. So Animaniacs went to until 1998, and then Wacko's Wish, which was a full-length movie, but it was straight to TV, came out in 1999. So that was a good one. One of the big differences was that was digital ink and paint and not ink and paint. So that shows that this could be adapted to a future version. And I'm trying to pull this up here because they also got a comic series from 1995 to 2000. Had 59 monthly episodes from DC Comics. So they ran pretty well there with Animaniacs. Let me see here if this will finally pop up. Okay.
And even Pinky of the Brain, we didn't really touch on it as a Animaniacs skit, but I think it worked a lot better in that forum than it did on a bigger platform in its own show, in my opinion.
Yeah. So here's a cover of one of the Animaniacs episodes. Again, basically had its own Pinky and the Brain also had their own comic series, and so there were some that they would say Animaniacs featuring Pinky and the Brain. So there were a few episodes where they would go, they would all be together, but then there were some that they just weren't. And that, again, Pinky and the Brain were so big that they could just have their own show, and that's fine. Pinky and the Brain was amazing. Let me see here. So Animaniacs also got games well past its life cycle. So there were 9 video games. The first one, let me see here, was Animaniacs, which came out for I have it here for the Genesis. It came out for the Genesis, the SNES, and the Game Boy.
And Konami made that. So Contra, the people of Contra brought you that game. That game was fantastic. It was a side scroller. It was very similar to what the kids are playing now, Cuphead, but not as crazy. But that game was great.
Yeah, this game was not good.
What?
No. So hear me out. This was the better version of the game. If you would like, there's a podcast called Retronauts, which has been on for about a decade, that talks about retro games and all that. And they did a whole episode about the Animaniacs games. So I would suggest you go find that and listen to it, because they have great insight on these games. But these were not fun games. These games lasted maybe 45 minutes. Speed runs clock in at around 20-ish minutes. And basically, like, you played as any one of the Warners, right? As you would expect to in a Warner Brother or in an Animaniacs game. But the thing was, you only played as one of them at a time. It only took one hit to die, and so then you would cycle to another Warner. And when the third Warner died, you would start back at for each death, number one, you would start back at the beginning of the world. So then, when the third Warner died, the third Warner would have to go and rescue the other 2. And this was just a needlessly hard game. There was no weapons. You could throw things every once in a while, but it was just needlessly hard, like a lot of games of the time.
I will completely disagree with you. This was awesome. This was Streets of Rage, but harder. Yeah, it was kind of hard, but I enjoyed the hell out of it. Yes, it was only about 45 minutes long, the runtime, but so were like all those other like big Disney games at the time, like the Aladdin game, the Lion King game, although really fun. And I think those just got re-released not too long ago. You could always get like emulators and whatnot, but this game, I thought it was a blast. Plus I had the Sega Genesis, or the what was it called, Sega Channel. I don't know if they had that available everywhere, but in Vegas where I had it, it was a cartridge that you would put on top of your Sega Genesis, and it had like coax cables running in, and through this is like, when the rocks were soft of internet.
Xbox Live.
yeah. This was like so archaic, it was ridiculous. But you would turn on your Sega Genesis, and when the Sega Channel cartridge would work, every month they would switch out probably about 100 or so games. And whenever this was on there, man, it was a treat, because it was the exact kind of game you would want for that kind of setup, because it's just like, yes, I beat the Animaniacs game, and now on to, Shining Force or Final Fantasy. But oh man, I can't disagree with you more. I thought this game was fantastic.
So no, I will agree that the animation on it is great. They got all the licensed music, they got all the voice actors back, and that's actually the case for a lot of these games. Some of them have really bad appropriations of the Animaniacs theme song, an Emmy award-winning theme, by the way. So not something that a lot of people wanted to shell out the money for. But I will go to my grave saying that this was just a hard as balls game, and it's really rough. So moving on. So the last 2 games that came out for Animaniacs came out in 2005. So the first one I want to talk about is an Xbox, PS2, and GameCube game called The Great Edgar Hunt. In Search of the Great Edgar Hunt. So Edgars were their version of Emmys. So that I've heard that it was just a terrible game, but it's there. And the last,
but it exists.
The last one was Lights, Camera, Action, which was a 2005 Game Boy Advance / Nintendo DS game. And you know that if you're putting out a Game Boy Advance game in 2005, you have no confidence in this game. Like, that's not something you do. You don't put out a licensed product in 2005 and hope that it does good on the Game Boy. From all reports, this was the games were the same. So like if you bought the DS version or the Game Boy Advance version, there was no change in the quality. But yeah, those are the last ones. There's lots of them. They're fun like if you have ISOs for your emulators on your computer, I would say go get them, but I wouldn't pay money for them.
Except that original game. Don't listen to Kody. It was great.
Yeah, I mean, people smarter than either of us have better opinions on it than us. But
I don't need to listen to some podcaster telling me what I like.
yeah, you don't need to listen to people who know.
I like this beer, Kody. You shush yourself. No, it was a fun game. I liked it.
They also had musical collections ranging from 1993 all the way up until 1999. So they had Animaniacs. So I remember renting these CDs from my library, so I could listen to the countries of the world, the states, capitals. They had these. So Animaniacs came out in 1993. Yakko's World in 1994. 2 Christmas albums. So they had A Christmas Plots in 1995 and a Hippo Opera Christmas in 1997. There were 2 compilations that came out in 1995 and 1999. So again, way past the shelf life of Animaniacs.
and I'll be damned to say that those didn't work, right? Though they were so much more catchy than the songs that, when my kids are in school and they sing songs to help them remember state capitals and anything. I think they should be listening to the Animaniacs songs, because I still, whatever, 20 something years later, those songs are emblazoned in my brain, and I know the state's capitals because of Animaniacs.
Yeah, no, it like you said, the educational aspect of these is great. I mean, obviously the presidents, like they're not going to just add on new presidents. There's even YouTube videos of oh geez, why did his name just fall out of my head? Yakko singing an updated version of the World Song with the new countries that have been added since then. Like it's just crazy, like how much love. There's still Animaniacs Lives concerts that you can go to, and Animaniacs has been tagged for a reboot on Hulu. Hulu has bought 2 seasons of a new Animaniacs series. Has most of the writers coming back. It has pretty much all the voice cast coming back. So like, I look forward to seeing that. I really hope that it comes out well.
Well, that's the best news I've heard all day. I mean, that's incredible. As long as they don't give it the Powerpuff Girls treatment, like you said, it's the original, most of the original voice cast, I am totally on board, because I was so torn apart by, and it wasn't even like the entire voice cast that they recast for the reboot of Powerpuff Girls, because you still have Tom Kenny in there doing the mayor. But just like a huge slap in the face to the original 3 women were recast, where, Tara Strong is totally available for Cartoon Network shows. I mean, she's doing, she was doing until recently Princess Bubblegum for Adventure Time. And no, I'm sorry, that's someone else. But she's doing everything. Tara Strong's doing everything. She's doing My Little Pony show still. She could have played Bubbles, and they just kind of rip the rug right out of that. I'm getting off on a tangent, but yeah, as long, to scale it back to what, relevantly what we're talking about, as long as it's, I mean, how do you make Animaniacs now though? Like, and have it be what it was?
Like I said, I mean, you can only hope that it comes out better than like, there are other digitally streamed only cartoons, like BoJack Horseman is kind of one of the most popular ones that's like streaming only. And BoJack, for as good as it is, does not look good. Like it is animated to look like that on purpose. So hopefully Animaniacs gets really good treatment, because it is hard to make a show that looks as good as Animaniacs or Tiny Toons and make it cheaply. Like, it's going to be so expensive, and I don't know how they're going to do it. I hope they do it well, but I don't know. It's one of those things we can hope for.
I'll give it 3 episodes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and then Disenchantment, which is another new show from a lot of the guys from Futurama, kind of gives us a little bit of hope as well, that like you can put money into a digitally produced, all digitally done streaming animation show, and it can be good. So, like I said, hopefully it comes out good.
We are up against it, but I mean, if you're here for Freakazoid, we kind of told you at the top of the hour that, at least for myself, Freakazoid wasn't a show that it was kind of on the tail end where I jumped into kind of other animated shows at the time. Cody, I know you like it quite a bit. So
I love Freakazoid. So
yeah.
I'm going to start off with the Freakazoid theme here.
It's time for Freakazoid and Friends, where the insanity never ends. Just as he defends, you're sure to get the bends from Freakazoid and Friends. When Dexter becomes Freakazoid, he shows his super stuff. He battles Snow and Booger, Beast, and villains who are cool. Like Kendall, Jack, and Cobra King, they that can be true. There's stand by moron, Lion, Duke, and that's about enough. It's Freakazoid and Friends. It's what your dentist recommends. To patients who chew gum, this show is really dumb. It's Freakazoid and Friends. Meet Dexter's girlfriend Steph and his mentor named Mitch too. The Bravery and Fanboy, the gnomes are quite a crew. Cosgrove and the Huntsman, Turkey Ninja too. And don't forget there's Freakazoid and a lovely shade of blue. It's Freakazoid and Friends, a show that no one comprehends. Our longevity depends on our demographic trends. It's totally freaky, Dexter's geeky, the plots are weaky, we're up the creaky, it's wrong and leaky. Freakazoid and Friends, now our song ends.
That was a joke. That was from an episode of Freakazoid. But there were so many episodes where Freakazoid, like they would just go like, "Oh, do you like?" We just thought we'd end the show early and do Animaniacs reruns, and then Steven Spielberg would be like, "Okay." And
Yeah.
So Freakazoid was about Dexter Douglas, who enters a code on his computer, or his fat cat enters a code onto a computer. He gets sucked into the primordial internet, becomes this Freakazoid, and I love how quickly they drop that it's like it's a superhero. This was actually initially made by Bruce Timm and who's the Paul Rugg and all the others. But Bruce Timm went on to do and was kind of concurrently working on Batman the Animated Series. And so one of the initial pushes for this was Steven Spielberg wanted a superhero show, but it was kind of pitched to him as like, what if the Joker was a good guy?
Yeah, he's very much like a Deadpool kind of.
Yeah, obviously this came before, but it's one of those things that I'm sure a lot of influence into Deadpool came from Freakazoid. There's another great podcast called What a Cartoon that did a great episode about Freakazoid. So they go into a lot more detail than we're going to go in here. But this was Paul Rugg, Joe Leahy, Tress McNeil, Ed Asner, Sergeant Mike Cosgrove, Frank Welker, Maurice LaMarche, basically the Tiny Toons Animaniacs crew. It only ran for 2 seasons, 24 episodes.
Oh, man.
First season was 13 episodes, second season of 11 episodes. And oh man, this is just like one of my favorite shows because of just how dumb it is. So I have a fairly long clip here, but this is basically the plot of every Freakazoid cartoon. So something bad happens and then this happens.
No doubt Longhorn's up to some evil plan. I'd better find him without delay.
Hey, Freakazoid.
Oh, hi, Cosgrove.
Want to go see a bear ride a motorcycle?
Do I? Let's roll! That bear is pretty good.
Pigs are smarter than bears, but they can't ride motorcycles. Oh, by the way, word has it that Longhorn plans to use robot hot rodders to steal a Titan missile.
You going?
It's out of my jurisdiction. If I were you, I'd get the Freakmobile and check it out. Might be something to it.
Perhaps there is! We test ran this place in an earlier episode, and I'm proud to say it's gonna stay a part of the show!
So that was him going to the Freakalair to pick out his Freakmobile. Basically, like they would just make up things, and I have another clip where they basically go like, where Fanboy, who's one of his sidekicks, he has a kind of running gag that he loses sidekicks like like nobody's business. But when Fanboy says, I didn't know a freak lair. I didn't know you had one of these. And he said, it's one of those things we're trying things out, seeing what sticks. Like there's open commentary about like they don't really know what's going on. Like there was no series Bible on this show. Like so there was no continuity that people were worried about. Just like things would come and go. Like there was the freak lair, and then there was like the Hall of Nifty Things to Know. In the last episode, or in the second to last episode, so there's throughout the series there's an alien who is originally called Moron, who in a later episode was called Boron, but then they readdressed that in the second to last episode. They're like, me, Lord Bravery, the Huntsman, and Moron or Boron or whoever that guy is, and like, they really show like we don't know, and there's no reason for us to know because whatever. Yeah, Freakazoid. Oh man, I just love Freakazoid so much.
Who did his actual voice? Was it the same guy that did Yakko?
No, it was Paul Rugg.
Okay.
So Paul Rugg also did the voice of Paul Harvey, animal psychiatrist, Boy Blubber, Hand Girl, Hand Man.
Yikes!
No, hands get married in an episode. So that's one of his sidekicks was Hand Man. And they finished the episode early so they can get to Handman's wedding to Hand Woman. He also plays his feet, Mr. Foot and Mr. and Mrs. Feet. So that's a whole nother, but again, and like I've already interrupted you with Freakazoid, things that actually happen in the Freakazoid. Like they would just be like, and now we go to this Freakazoid special report, and like he would talk about the weather, or like there's just so many good ones. Like this one right here.
And now, a musical interlude. This concludes our
and it's just Freakazoid playing chopsticks terribly. and like they were just like, all right, well, this portion of the episode was short. What do we do? Let's have Freakazoid play the chopstick.
Very badly. It was funny because one of the showrunners of Animaniacs, who was probably the same, wound up to being one of the same showrunners for Freakazoid. But they said that, because you would see Freakazoid pop in and out of Animaniacs quite a bit, where you wouldn't really see the other ones cameo in each other's shows, but Freakazoid would kind of pop in here and there in the Animaniacs. And the interview of one of the showrunners at the time said that, yeah, Freakazoid was kind of like that weird guy that lived in your neighborhood that would just kind of show up to your house parties and your holiday parties and like steal your crock pot and then leave. Like, I'm just like, oh, okay. And then, that turned into his own giant show, which was, it's one of those shows that I want to get back into, doing this episode. I wanted to get more in depth into this, but unfortunately I couldn't, but it's definitely still on my radar. It is a lot. Like you said, Tiny Toons and Animaniacs, you could just go and stream on Hulu and it's fantastic. Freakazoid, you kind of have to work for.
Yeah, so you have to, you could do it through less than legitimate means.
Sure.
It's streaming on Verve, which is or vrv.com. I think it's vrv.com. But anyway, just search for Verve streaming. You can get a free 30-day trial, and just there's only 2 seasons. So you could watch all of Freakazoid in 2 seasons. But basically everywhere else, you can buy it anywhere. Like on YouTube, you can buy the DVDs, which we're lucky we got DVDs. There's almost no merchandise for Freakazoid whatsoever. All these other ones, we've had games and comic books. Freakazoid got nothing. And
it was like the writing was on the wall at this point for these showrunners, right? It was just like, okay, we're just, like you said, we're just gonna have them play chopsticks poorly because we know the party, like they're turning out the lights in the office. We know the writing's on the wall, so let's just kind of do what we want type thing.
Yeah, and again, this was kind of where Steven Spielberg was kind of hands off the most, like you said, with Tiny Toons and Animaniacs. Tiny Toons, he was definitely like he was there. With Animaniacs, he wasn't always in the room, but like he approved all scripts. He would read through everything, and he was there when he could be. But with Freakazoid, it was just kind of like, whatever. So I actually pulled another clip. There was an episode of Freakazoid where Freakazoid, Wacko, and Brain from Peeking the Brain have a argument over who is Steven Spielberg's favorite. He's mowing a lawn right now.
Top of the morning to you, Freakazoid!
So he's mowing a guy's lawn, and the guy comes out to talk to him.
Hey, what are you doing?
I'm fulfilling your request. I'm mowing your lawn.
While the lobe's attacking everybody? Go get him already! What are you, Wacko?
No, I'm Wacko. Baton Rouge, Louisiana, Indianapolis, Indiana, and Columbus is the capital of Ohio.
Hey, Wacko, what are you doing? We're kind of in the middle of something here.
Oh, it's okay. Steven loves it when we do stuff like this. After all, Animaniacs is his favorite.
Sorry to break this to you, Wacko, but if I'm not mistaken, Freakazoid is Steven's favorite show. We got a memo.
I believe you're both mistaken. It is the sophisticated wit and charm of Pinky and the Brain that has captured Steven's heart, as well as making it the breakaway hit of the WB schedule.
Well, why don't we just go find out? You know, Brain, I'm getting...
They cut to Amblin Studios.
Even like our show. Thank you very much. Find out right now.
Quiet! Now, what's this about?
First of all, Steven, thank you very much for taking the time to meet with us. We realize you're very busy, and...
Oh, just ask him.
We were just wondering, who's your favorite?
Who are you people?
And then it just cuts back to the episode.
And that was actual Spielberg, right?
No. So they had Paul Rudd do the voice of Spielberg.
Oh,
Spielberg, I think, and I may be wrong, from my research, he never did his own voice. But like I said, he was always there. He was always around. But they were just like, Paul Rudd did such a good Spielberg that like they just didn't have to bother him.
I think the only exception to that rule was I think he did do a cameo in How I Spent My Summer Vacation, if I remember that correctly. Yeah, because they go to, it was during the Pepe Le Pew, not Pepe Le Pew, I forget, Lola the skunk.
Lola the skunk.
Yeah, there was a little side story with her kind of meeting this like hunky James Dean like skunk. And they go to a fancy hotel like in Huntington or something, and Roseanne is actually singing For the Land of the Free and then falls off the rafters and like squashes someone. But yes, I think Spielberg is there shooting this movie, and that was, now that I think about it, that's the only time he actually did his own voice.
Yeah. So I do want to run one last clip here. And this is another Freakazoid clip. So this is right after Freakazoid loses his current sidekick, who is conveniently named Expendable Lad. So this is also where I got my Twitter username from for right now. So Fanboy applies to be Freakazoid's new sidekick.
We interrupt this program for the following special report.
I'm Christina Shaniqua Sanchez Toyota O'Malley, reporting live from downtown, where in another incident gone freaky, Freakazoid has helped police apprehend the notorious criminal Milkman. This was the scene not 10 minutes ago, as Freakazoid and his newest sidekick, Expendable Lad, slugged it out with the lethally lactic Milkman. Though Freakazoid eventually won the battle, tragedy struck when Expendable Lad was severely milked. And now the big question is, who will be Freakazoid's next sidekick in his ongoing fight against crime?
Yeah, then everybody would respect me.
That's Fanboy.
Keep them coming, Mike.
They cut to Freakazoid having mango shakes because he's so sad.
Expendable Lad, we hardly knew ye. Hey, Mike, enough with the bells.
Sorry, I'm giving angels their wings.
Well, cut it out and give me another one.
Hey, Slow down, Mr. F. It's not like Expendable Lad's dead or anything. He's just in the hospital with a bruised clavicle.
I said, give me another one. Curse your tiny paper hat! If I want to blitz myself into some papaya-induced hallucination, that's my business.
Hello?
Wait! Ooh, yummy.
I'm Fanboy.
That's him spitting out mango juice or papaya juice.
I want to be known as lethally lactive or lactive. Yeah.
If your shirt's wet at strange spots, I'll know that you're lethally lactive.
Oh, geez, yeah. Oh, what a show, sir.
Yeah, it was so much fun.
These are fun to do, Kody. I have to say.
I lose track of time so quickly with these. It's dumb and it's amazing and it's hilarious, and yeah, I'm ready for the next one too. It's fun.
Absolutely. So you could thank you everyone in the chat. Freaking Narc De Bears just showed up at the end, as well as MTG strategist Eric Williamson and James, and everyone's been hanging with us the entire time. But this is not the what's that?
The Walking Deb has been in here for a while.
Oh yeah. This is not the only place that you could enjoy this particular podcast. Kody, tell the kids where you could find us.
So you can find us on the Google Play podcast app. We're on Stitcher Radio. I think we're on iTunes now. But basically, I've been putting it up there so you can download this. I will make sure to get this one done a little bit quicker than the last one. But yeah, so you could download us there. If not, check out our Twitter account at Toons_U, where we have a link to the Spreaker website where you can get a little RSS code, and you can just put that into whatever podcatcher app you use, and it will just auto download these episodes as they come out.
Absolutely. My co-host Kody, this was a blast. I hope you everyone in the chat and everyone listening now had as much fun going down memory lane as we did tonight. But until next time, what's our sign off to this show? I'm not sure. Do we have a sign off yet?
No. I mean, you can find John on Twitter as at OrzovDone21. I'm on Twitter as at NotCodySmith. Talk to us about cartoons, because we love talking about cartoons. Tell us which one is your favorite, and tell us about which like if there's a specific scene, tell us what you like about those, because we love chatting and we love talking about cartoons. We're both man children, and we talk about things we love, and one of those things are the things that we watched on Saturday mornings and ate cereal to. So yeah, just talk to us, and yeah, I'd love to talk with it.
Next time we do this, can we facilitate alcoholic cereal that we just eat during the whole episode?
Well, see, there's actually a way you can do that. You just get cornflakes, and you fill the bowl, instead of with milk, you fill it with wild turkey.
Ah, we're just drinking wild turkey with a spoon. Like, who needs the crunch?
Well, yeah, but see, it's a corn-based whiskey, so you just yeah. It soaks it, or maybe Chex would be good, like corn Chex.
Ugh.
Because it just like would soak it up into the into the little squares.
I mean, oh God, it just smells. My wife would walk in and be like, "What the hell is that smell?" But yes, find us on all the social medias. This is a ton of fun. We will see you all next time.